Hi, and welcome to the launch of Sustainable Brand Index 2024 in the Netherlands. My name is Erik Elvingsson Hedén, and I am the CEO of SB Insight and the founder of Sustainable Brand Index. I will now guide you through this webinar full of insights about sustainability, brands, and consumers. Before we get into the specifics about the results from Sustainable Brand Index 2024, I want to share some things about our company. SB Insight is an insight agency, obviously, focusing on sustainability. We cover sustainability from a brand, communications, and business development perspective. And we help brands and companies all over the place to understand how is sustainability affecting us, our brand, our consumers, and our ability to communicate with them. We have been doing this for a long time now. We started out in Sweden back in 2011. Then 2 years later, we went into the Norwegian market, the Danish market, and the Finnish market. In 2017, we expanded into the Netherlands as well. And then since 2020, we're also in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So all in all, 8 markets today. Sustainable Brand Index is today Europe's largest independent brand study on sustainability. We're very proud of that. And every year, we interview more than 80,000 respondents about how they perceive more than 1,600 brands in these markets. So, how do we do it? How do we perform Sustainable Brand Index? That's a very good question. Let me walk you through the 4 stages of it. Number 1, desk research. We put a massive amount of time every year into looking around us, basically. What is happening in the market? What are key developments that we see? Economy, politics, social trends, etc. And of course, what are the sustainability topics that we see emerging among consumers and in society in general? So this is a lot of work just looking around us and gathering that. And this is super important input that goes into the web surveys that we perform in the later stages. Stage number 2, web survey number 1. This is where we take all the insights and the results from the desk research stage and we put into a web survey where we want to interview consumers. We work with Norstat as our main supplier of consumer respondents. We access their panels and we ask our questions, basically. And web survey number 1 is very much about 2 things. It's brand assessments. What do people think about the brands from a sustainability perspective? And also some overarching consumer indicators regarding sustainability attitudes and sustainability behaviors. Stage number 3, web survey number 2. Having done web survey number 1, we collect the data, we look at it, we analyze it, and we see, maybe there are things here we want to examine further. If so, we put that into web survey number 2. On top of that, we also look at the in-depth perspective for each brand. So we analyze, or rather we interview consumers about between 25 to 30 different areas for the brand. What are the key drivers behind the perception of the specific brand when it comes to sustainability? Stage number 4, last but not least, turning data into insights. This is really the most important part, according to me. This is where we take the data from Web Survey 1 and Web Survey 2 and of course combine it with 14 years of having performed Sustainable Brand Index. So the amount of data is vast and now we have to make sense of it. And this is what we do. And one part of that is really generating insights that we're going to share today in this webinar. And the other part is really tailored insights relevant for the brands on the list that we provide to them. What is the purpose of Sustainable Brand Index? This is a very important question to ask yourself. Luckily, this is something we clearly defined back in 2011 when we launched it. The purpose of Sustainable Brand Index is to drive the agenda within sustainability and really visualize the value of sustainable branding. And by doing this, we see that we can increase the knowledge among different stakeholders about sustainability. And this is something that is super important today. One of the reasons that we started Sustainable Brand Index was this perspective that you can see here, the sustainable perspective, as we call it. What it shows is really that sustainability has gone from yesterday being clearly detached from the brand and irrelevant, to be honest, to actually integrating more and more into the brand. And by integrating, I mean that this is a huge part of what people look at, what consumers value when they assess a brand and choose a brand. Hopefully, and what we're aiming for here is really that tomorrow, in the future, we're going to have a market that consists of only sustainable brand. It's going to be mandatory, and then we're going to stop talking about brands and sustainable brands because they're all going to be sustainable. This year in the Netherlands, we have interviewed 12,000 Dutch consumers between 16 and 75 years old, a nationally representative sample. And all in all, we have assessed, or they have assessed rather, 223 brands within 22 different industries. So there you have the numbers for Netherlands. Here we have the one of the really major or overarching KPIs, key performance indicators that we look at for all our markets, and this is of course for the Netherlands. It shows the interest in sustainability, and namely the share of Dutch consumers that talk about sustainability with friends and family on a regular basis, sometimes or often. So this is the share we're looking at. And I think it's very interesting to see the stability over the past few years. So looking at 2020 to 2024, this year you can see we're always somewhere around 70% of the population talking about sustainability. And I think especially looking at this in the context of what's happening around us. We're living in a quite worrying world. We have a lot of things going on, war, conflicts. We have an economy which is tough, high cost of living for regular people. And still we do see that sustainability is there. It's really holding its ground, as it says here. You know, it's one of those topics that are on the agenda of consumers, regardless if it's a good economy or a bad economy, for example. So sustainability is part of the new normal for consumers, and that is very, very encouraging, I would say. What do people talk about? Well, here we can see a bit more in detail what the Dutch are discussing when it comes to sustainability. Of course, quite naturally, and this is the same across our markets, war and conflicts come in as the top topic of discussion, and that's also gone up since last year, as you can see indicated here by the little green arrow. So that is high, 54% talking about that. Climate change coming in at number 2, 49%, so super relevant topic for people. That's encouraging as well, I would say, also going up since last year. Third, public health, 40%, also increasing a bit since last year. And I mean, health is important, and that's really something that is close to us, close to home, me, myself, my family, my friends, etc. So definitely an engaging topic regardless. The country's economy, the economy of course high on the agenda and high on the discussion agenda as well, because you know, economy is tough, and that's something that we talk about on a daily basis. The last but not least, but of course decreasing slightly since last year, energy, efficient energy and efficient energy use. That's gone down a bit to 33%, but still on the top 5 of the most occurring or recurring topics among Dutch when it comes to talking about sustainability. Looking at the topics that have increased the most since last year, not necessarily being at the top of the list, but still seeing the largest movement in a positive direction. We see that war and conflicts, yes, again, moving up, of course, nothing surprising there. Opinion polarization, basically seeing that the opinions we're really moving further away from each other and polarizing a part in society. And of course, we have a Dutch election that's been discussed a lot. And so definitely the polarization of opinions gone from 18% talking about this to 30%. So quite a big increase for that topic in discussions. Democracy, of course, also connected to that, going up 10 percentage points, close to that discussion, close to the opinion polarization. Safe societies, I would say, also connecting to these previous topics that we talked about, from 20 to 29%. And then totally different topic, sustainable transport, quite a narrow or at least quite a specific topic within, more connected to environmental and climate responsibility. But definitely very clear here that the topics that are increasing in discussions among Dutch are definitely connected to society, democracy, politics, etc. Those are things that are high on the agenda among the Dutch at the moment. If we move a bit from what people talk about to what they think companies specifically should prioritize. That's another thing, and that's what we're going to look at here. So first of all, the area rather that consumers think that companies in the Netherlands should prioritize the most is really recycling. Recycling of materials has gone up a bit since last year, and this is really the leading topic by quite a margin ahead of the others. So that is really something that people care about, being a part of the circular economy, which of course also in general a very hot topic in the Netherlands. Apart from that, we see that local labor conditions coming in at number 2. Sustainable packaging, there we have one of those fairly narrow but still very engaging areas that people think that companies should prioritize, coming in as number 3. Health and healthy products, number 4. That's also a big increase since last year, up 5 percentage points. And then labor conditions abroad, so basically supply chain related labor conditions, up 4 percentage points since last year. So kind of a mix here. We also see climate coming in after that, and of course, as you can see here, no huge differences between these topics, even though recycling of material, number 1, is really leading the way, so to speak, or having the top position here, but otherwise quite close. But definitely some changes, as you can see, since last year. Some of the areas increasing a lot, like health, for example. Of course, another thing that we always look at and one of these KPIs that we follow over time is this one, the willingness to pay, or rather the share of Dutch consumers claiming that sustainability does affect my purchasing decision. And I know this is of course something to be quite wary about, because we do know that what people say within sustainability specifically and what they actually do are two vastly different things. They are sometimes close, but often quite far apart. So of course this is more of an indicator, an overarching indicator to see, okay, where are we heading? And especially if we look at it over time. And I think this is quite interesting to see that this indicator is going down from 79% last year to 73% in 2024. And when we dive into this a bit more to try and see, okay, what is happening here? Is this something to be worried about? We do find two major things that are driving this negative development, so to speak. One thing is, of course, the economy, the fact that people don't feel that they are able to actually, in some cases, take sustainability into account. It's very important for companies to make it more of a integrated part, not an add-on, so to speak. That is super important. The other thing is that people are quite confused about what is sustainable and what is not sustainable. What is a sustainable brand and what is a not sustainable brand, so to speak. What are things that are good to consider and what shouldn't I consider? So this confusion in many ways, and which is driven of course by the complexity of sustainability, this also drives some kind of indifference, which we can also see here. And this is of course not to take too seriously. It's still only 1 year going from 79 to 73, but of course an indication and something to think about from a brand perspective and a communications perspective. How can we address this in a clearer way? How can we actually embed sustainability more into our offers and our products? Looking closer at the consumer, the sustainable consumer, or sometimes the unsustainable consumer, first of all, something that we have added this year to the study, we've added a lot of lifestyle questions, basically, and I'm going to show you just a few of them. Starting from the bottom here, we can see that 23% of the Dutch claim that their current lifestyle is not sustainable. 23%. And I actually want to reverse this or flip it over, because I'm more interested in the other 77% who claim that their current lifestyle is, to a certain degree or more or less, sustainable. That's where we have a challenge, I would say, these days, that 77% of Dutch consumers do feel that the way they live, the way they consume, etc., is actually more or less sustainable. That's where we have a challenge, and that's where we need to focus a lot of our attention and communication, I think, because otherwise it's going to be tough to drive change. On the positive side and the positive notes, we do see that almost half of the population, 48%, they do feel that, yes, I want to live more sustainably, I would like it. And also they see, or what they claim is that, which is of course also posing somewhat of a challenge for brands, if I am to make sustainable changes, it has to fit with my current lifestyle. And is that possible or isn't it? That's a long discussion to have. But of course, there is a will, there is an ambition, but the awareness and the self-awareness and the realization that, I have to change the way I do things might not be there at the moment, and that is definitely something that we have to address more clearly as brands, as companies, and use sustainability communication as a force for good here to drive realization but also change in behaviors in real time. Let's have a look at our 4 behavior groups. These are 4 groups that we have been following since 2013. They are very interesting because they track what people do rather than what they say that they do. And this is a super important distinction within sustainability. Ego, as you might guess, is really focused on themselves, so to speak. So ego is not a key person driving the sustainable development. They are, however, very, very interested in what I would call national values, local production, domestic work opportunities, etc., etc. So there are definitely some aspects of it, but they can't really stand sustainability and climate as words. They're quite sensitive to it. Moderate. This is, as you might guess from the name, kind of the average consumer. They are maybe not too sustainable, but they are definitely interested in being sustainable and making sustainable choices. But they are not the kind of group that will drive that forward with themselves. They look at others, and once other people start acting sustainably or doing sustainable things, then they might actually follow. The smart behavior group. This is what many of you out there would characterize as the conscious consumer today. This is really a group that values sustainability, but also quality, service, health. And I think the key characteristic that I want to mention here is really that this is a group that can balance what's in it for them, what's good for me, but also what's in it for the world and for society and for climate, etc. So they are having kind of a sense of balancing these 2 important things. Dedicated, the dedicated sustainable behavior group. This is really the person that prioritizes sustainability number 1, no matter what. Sustainability always comes first. They're knowledgeable, super interested, and also quite active around what companies do and voice their opinions quite loudly. When we take a closer look at the development of the 4 behavior groups in the Netherlands, this is what we see. First of all, we can see that the big group, the moderate group, is increasing from 40 to 46% this year. So the average consumer, so to speak, is a big group. No surprise there. Smart group is still bigger than ego. And I have to mention this because the smart group is actually in the Nordic countries smaller than ego these days. So the Dutch still being ahead here, but we do see a tendency of a negative development where smart is going down from 27 to 25 this year, and we also see ego increasing from 17 to 20%. So as you can see, those 2 are closing in, so to speak, and might we see, depending on how the market is developing, that they are actually crossing paths in the next year. We hope not, but that's definitely something to keep our eyes open for. Maybe the main thing to be wary about here is that the dedicated group, 16% last year, is now down to 9%. And of course, this is very much attributed to the fact that it is tough, since we're looking at behaviors here, it is tough for people to act sustainably when the economy is tough, when the cost of living is high. And again, I talked about this before, when it's complex and tough to know, even for the dedicated, it's not always easy to know what is sustainable, what isn't sustainable, etc. So here we have challenges that we have to address clearly as brands and as other stakeholders as well. One of the key drivers for change is, of course, sustainability communication and the way we use it. So let's have a closer look at the developments within that area this year. First of all, I have good news, definitely good news. We do see a large increase in positive attitudes to sustainability communication. As you can see here, we have an increase from 39% of the Dutch saying that, I think sustainability communication is good, something that I like, I want to see more of it, to actually 53%. So that's quite a big increase, from 39 to 53%. More than half of the population are now positive to sustainability communication from companies, I should say. Equivalently, or on the other side of it, we do see that the negatives, last year, 32% of the Dutch said that I don't like sustainability communication, I don't think is anything we need, so to speak. And this year it's actually down to 21%. So a really, really positive development in terms of the attitude among consumers to corporate sustainability communication. One of the reasons for this, I have to admit, and I have to say, is that we have seen a bit of less of communication around sustainability from companies over the past year or so. And of course, then people tend to get a bit less subject to this, then they catch their breath, and then they are a bit more positive, so to speak. So that is one thing to consider, that it's not necessarily easy to handle this, because the attitude is there, the positive attitude is there, because people have seen less of it in general. And this is clearly also, I would say, leading me into the next big challenge in sustainability communication, namely the fact that trust is still a big issue and actually becoming an even bigger issue when it comes to sustainability communication. As you see here, last year we had 40%. We actually had a positive development in the Netherlands from 33% the year before to 40%, saying that I generally trust what companies say within sustainability. But now we see that that has gone down from 40% to 25%. So that is quite a large drop from last year, 15 percentage points. And on the other side as well, the negatives, we do see that they are going up from 28% to 34%. So this is really challenging situation. Yes, people are interested, they positive to the phenomenon of sustainability communication, but once you ask them more about, okay, the things that you actually see or hear, what do you think about that? Well, then the picture changes a bit. That is much more challenging. To build on that, if we look a bit at frequency, if you add that to the mix and look at the people that say that they see or hear sustainability communication of some sort every day, well, those are also the people that mistrust it the most. They are 59% there saying that I generally don't trust what brands, companies are saying within sustainability. Of course, it's easier to have this attitude, this perception when you're a subject to sustainability communication very often, but it's still an interesting indication to see that frequency here adds to the problem, so to speak. So all in all, there is a big challenge here with the fact that yes, people do like sustainability communication from companies in general. They can see the value of it, but when it comes to the communication that they actually see or hear or are subject to, then the situation is another. The trust is just not there. This is something that we need to solve. Let's discuss that, because we have also looked a bit at, okay, what would then entail, what would mean, what would be the key building bricks in credible sustainability communication. There we have seen three very clear things that consumers have pointed out for us when we have done the data collection this year. So first of all, transparency. And what does this mean? This is an old word. We've been talking about it a lot over the past decade at least. Being transparent, everyone has to be transparent. But basically when we talk with consumers here and dive a bit deeper into the data, we see that what they mean is really that they wanted communication to be transparent in the way that you're not only talking about all the things you're doing well, but also the things that you're doing less well, and actually maybe poorly in some cases. This is where we failed. This is what we didn't do good enough. That's what you should talk about as well. Not only because people don't feel that it's realistic, that everything is great, you're doing fantastic work, because at the same time they can see the numbers in terms of emissions or other things that are going in the wrong direction. So it's not credible for them that everything is just dandy. Doesn't make sense, basically. So you have to be transparent, the good things and the bad things. Second, clarity, or maybe distinctiveness is an even better word, being very clear with this is what it means that we do these things. So if, for example, you're doing a certain sustainability project, or if you're doing a certain effort within sustainability, people want it to be very clear what it means and why this is good, not just that you're doing it. So being clear and distinctive around this is the effect of our work. That is a key thing as well that people point out. And number three, last but not least, evidence. People want proof that what you're doing is actually true. So they want you to be able to provide that proof, and they want you to be able to say, well, maybe there's a third party here involved, or maybe there is a certification, or maybe there's a label, or maybe there's something that we have gotten as a proof for doing this job in a good enough way, or in the right way, so to speak. So transparency, clarity, distinctiveness, and evidence. These are the three key drivers for credible sustainability communication when it comes to the consumer's view of sustainability communication. We're getting into the exciting stuff. the most sustainable brands according to consumers. So, basically Sustainable Brand Index, the ranking in Sustainable Brand Index 2024. Let's go. The Sustainable Brand Index ranking score consists of two major areas. We call them environmental responsibility and social responsibility. So these are the key aspects of the ranking score. The definition that we use are the 17 global goals for sustainable development. So for environmental responsibility, we take the environmentally related goals, and that's what we use as a definition when we ask consumers. And same for social responsibility, we take the socially related goals and put them in the definition as for social responsibility. And let's take an example. If you're a perfect brand, which means that everyone thinks you're sustainable, you would get 100% within environmental responsibility and another 100% within social responsibility. We take these percentages and we put those on top of each other. So again, a perfect brand, there is no such thing, I know, but a perfect brand would get 200%. That's the maximum score. So the score goes from 0 to 200. And this score then corresponds to a certain rank in the list that you get. Before looking at the specific industries and the specific brands, let's take a look at the broader perspective or the overarching view of the market. We can see here the ranking score, the average ranking score for the Dutch market, for all the brands in the study. First of all, let's take a quick look at the social versus environmental responsibility ranking. You can see that those are very, very tight on top of each other. Basically, what this means is that the perceptions within environmental responsibility versus social responsibility does not differ that much. They're very close to each other. One reason for that is if you're a consumer, you tend to, maybe you have an idea about, I think, a certain way about a specific brand within one of these areas, for example, environmental responsibility, then you tend to assume that if I think they're doing well within environment, I assume that they're doing equally well within social responsibility. So there is a big spillover effect between these two areas. If you think one thing, you tend to assume the same thing about the other area. That's why we see this very tight relationship between environmental and social responsibility. Looking again at the overall, the aggregated ranking score, the top line here, we see that there's been a fantastic development over time, especially from 2018 up until last year, from 47% average ranking score in 18 to 74% last year. So basically what this means is that more and more Dutch consumers have become aware and also become positive to how brands work with sustainability. However, this has come to an end quite abruptly, as you can see this year, going from 74% last year to 54%. So we have a drop of 20 percentage points in the ranking score this year, average ranking score. A big drop for the market, down to the same level almost as we were in 2019. So this big increase is erased at the moment. The reasons for this, we have to dive a bit deeper, and to do that, we really need to look at the two brand parameters that make up the ranking, not the areas, because we talked about that, but the parameters. So we have one parameter is awareness. To what extent do people actually have some kind of a knowledge or at least gut feeling around the work that companies are doing? That's what we're looking at here. So what you can see, especially from last year to this year, is that the awareness level in general, awareness about the brand's sustainability work has gone down from 79% to 72% this year. So basically we see that people are feeling less aware of what companies are doing within the field of sustainability. So that is one reason that we have this fairly steep decline in the ranking overall. The other reason, which is of course the other parameter, the attitude, basically are people negative, are they neutral, are they positive, how do they assess the actual work being done by the brands? That is also going down. So from 46% last year, which was a really top score over time, to 37% this year. So that has gone down quite a lot as well. So what we're seeing here is that people are less aware, but also less positive, because very important to mention, what we're looking at here is the share of consumers that are positive to how brands are working with sustainability. Let's get into the specifics about the ranking, namely the industries and the brands, of course. First of all, I just have to mention some of the differences between industries or between brands may not be statistically significant. That's important to remember. Having said that, let's take a look, first of all, at the top performing industries in 2024 in the Netherlands in Sustainable Brand Index. Here you have them, 1 to 10. I'll count them down for you. We have number 10, energy. The energy industry comes in at number 10, fairly high, perhaps. We have hobby and leisure. We have health insurance at number 8, food number 7, e-commerce number 6. We have beauty at number 5, and then we have mobility at number 4. Pharmacies, connected to health, which we talked a bit about before, number 3. We have banks, number 2, and then we have grocery stores as the most sustainable industry perception-wise, according to consumers. One thing which is interesting whenever we compare different markets is just to mention that banks is not a super sustainable industry in the Nordics, for example, if you ask consumers, whereas in the Netherlands we can see that this is an industry that is doing very well, coming in at number 2 here, for example. Apart from that, we do see that grocery stores, pharmacies, food, meaning high engagement, high frequency, those kind of industries are doing quite well, which is not surprising. Things that people consume a lot and meet a lot on a daily or at least weekly basis. Let's move from the industries to the actual brands on the list. And what I want to share with you first are the 10 brands that are actually climbing the most in Sustainable Brand Index 2024. So these are the brands that are moving the most in the number of positions in the ranking since last year. Up 53 spots, 53 ranking positions. Mora comes in 53. Then we have Skoda, the car brand, up 53 spots as well. That reminds me of Finland, where they also did very well. Vodafone up 54 spots this year compared to last year. Andrelon up 54 ranking spots as well since last year. It's time for ice cream. We have Ben & Jerry's up 57 ranking positions since last year. Good, well done. ASR, 58 ranking positions since last year. Google, doing well, up 62 since last year. Then we have Canis and Gunink at 66%. I hope you forgive my Dutch. And then we have Energidirect.nl at up 71 spots since last year. And then the brand increasing the most in Sustainable Brand Index since last year is actually Côte d'Or, 77 ranking positions up since last year. That's a lot. So well done. Congratulations to all of these brands for climbing the most in Sustainable Brand Index 2024. Looking at climbers, we do have to look at droppers as well. Here you can see the list of the 10 brands dropping the most. Let's not go into the nitty-gritty details here, but let's just mention them. We have Bavaria losing 40 spots. We have Oasis Premium Resort. We have Lindt. We have Danio. We have Kia, the car brand. Peugeot, the car brand as well. Menzies, Dormio Resorts and Hotels, Procter & Gamble, and then we have Kono Kasmakers dropping a whopping 80 spots this year, actually. So a bit of a tougher situation for these brands. But again, when we have climbers, we have droppers. That's just nature, how nature works, basically. As you might guess, we are getting closer to the revealing the winner and also, of course, the top 10. Before I do that, I really want to share some key insights into what are the main drivers for the brands that are doing well, because we do see that there are definitely some trends and some similarities, so to speak, when it comes to the brands, either on the top of the list, but also having a very positive development. So 3 general things that I do want to share with you. First of all, what we see this year, that it's going very well for brands that are, if I may say so, robust and safe. So kind of traditional brands, maybe state-owned, those kind of things. You know, brands that have been around for a long time and people really feel that they know where they have them. Again, they're very robust and they're also providing some kind of safety and security in society. So that is definitely one of the key success factors, being that kind of brand. Another thing, and I mentioned this previously when I talked about success factors for sustainability communication, but that is really being clear and being distinctive. So the brands that are distinctive and actually quite simple, there is a specific sustainability issue that they address, not a variety, but actually, people have an easier time understanding that this is sustainable because, and then it's very clear, what it is. It might be that you address a certain sustainability topic, maybe food waste, or maybe organic food, or it might be, this is hygiene, this is, less chemicals. So really clear things that people easily can relate to. And this is, of course, connected to the fact that people are confused and they think that sustainability is tough, it's complex, and then they go to these kind of safeguards, so to speak, the brands that are distinctive and simple. And last but not least, and also a bit connected to the earlier ones, really what we see, brands that are doing well are the brands that have clear passive drivers. And what I mean by this is really, maybe you're not driven primarily by the fact that you're talking about sustainability or that you have clear sustainable values, but also the fact that you have passive drivers that worked for you. Perhaps you belong to a positive industry, perhaps you have a certain ownership. We know, for example, cooperatives, state-owned brands, as I mentioned before, are usually viewed as more sustainable. Maybe you have a long history. Those kind of things are not necessarily always connected to sustainability, but things that people are viewing as sustainable. So if you have these kind of clear passive drivers, then you're in luck this year, because that is clearly driving the way people look at brands from a sustainability perspective. Now it's time for the annual countdown of the top 10 most sustainable brands in the Netherlands according to consumer perception. I will go through them from 10 all the way down to 1. Number 10 in the Netherlands 2024, we have Dille & Camille. Very well done. Great work. Congratulations. In place, definitely. Super strong brand. Number 9, what do we find there? We find Hema, retailer. Very good as well. Super. Great work. Number 8, NS. Oh yes. Here we can talk about the robustness, those things that I just mentioned before. Definitely a robust brand, something that is very, very clearly connected. Infrastructure, of course. That was number 8. Number 7, Sonatura comes in at number 7. Always performing very well. And I mean, here we have also what we talked about, distinctiveness, simplicity in many ways, very clear value proposition within sustainability. That's number 7. Number 6, here we find IKEA, Swedish brand, always nice to see, of course. IKEA, number 6, doing well, and usually doing well within all of our markets. It is viewed as a very sustainable brand by consumers. Number 5 in Sustainable Brand Index 2024 in the Netherlands, we have Green Choice. Green Choice coming in at number 5. Again, also a brand usually performing very well in the ranking. Number 4, Dopper. Dopper comes in at number 4. Here we are again with the distinctiveness, very, very clear what they're doing, easy for people to understand, and that is definitely hit home here in this case. That's number 4. And now we are left with the top 3 in Sustainable Brand Index 2024. Let's go for number 3. Here we have an old winner, the Vegetarian Butcher, comes in at number 3. Very well done, always a top contender in Sustainable Brand Index. That's the same this year, definitely. Number 3, congratulations to the Vegetarian Butcher. And that leaves us with number 2 and number 1. Let's take a look at number 2, and this is actually a completely new brand to the ranking, added this year. Number 2 in Sustainable Brand Index, Ekoplaza. Good work. Interesting to see, very, very strong, coming in as number 2, and of course then, as you might derive, number 1 in the grocery store category. Well done, congratulations on the newcomer. And then we're left with the winner, the most sustainable brand in the Netherlands according to consumer perception 2024. We have an old classics, it's Tony's Chocolonely. Congratulations to Tony's slave-free chocolate, of course, yes. Again, on top of the list in Sustainable Brand Index 2024. Well done.
Thank you so much for voting Tony Chocolonely as being the most sustainable brand of the Netherlands. Every day we strive to end exploitation in cocoa, and it's amazing that consumers appreciate us for that. And therefore, our mission is not ready, so we continue to strive to end exploitation in cocoa. And you can help us by sharing our chocolate, sharing our story, and hopefully vote for us again next year. See ya. Bye-bye.
We're not only going to share the top 10 and the number 1, of course, but let's also have a look at the industry winners in Sustainable Brand Index 2024. Here you have them, all the industry winners, all the 22 different industries in the study. Of course, Tony Chocolonely winning the entire thing, obviously also coming on top in the food industry. I mentioned Ecoplaza coming in as number 1 in the grocery stores industry. Impressive start, so to speak, for Ecoplaza in the ranking. You can see Landal Green Parks still claiming the top lead, the top position in holiday parks, for example. KLM in airlines. Yeah, you see it for yourself. I'm not going to walk you through all of them, but definitely huge congratulations to all of these brands who are perceived as the most sustainable brands in their categories, industries, according to Dutch Consumers 2024. Good work. Sustainable Brand Index is more than a ranking, so much more. We have the largest database in Europe of sustainability insights. We have 3 different types of reports. We have what we call a data report, we have an analysis report, and we have a strategy report. All of these are made to give you insights into how you're perceived, the reasons behind that, consumer behavior and how to change that, and of course recommendations on how to go on and how to build a sustainable brand and communicate sustainability in the best and most credible and effective way possible. This year, I'm thrilled to be able to tell you that we have actually launched our new project where we combine sustainability perception, Sustainable Brand Index, with sustainability performance and compare those two to identify the gap between what people think and how well you're actually doing within sustainability. So let's have a listen to one of the clients that we worked with on this project. You were actually the first company to jump on this possibility to try the perception versus performance analysis. How come you took this decision?
Well, we like to be early adopters, of course, but first and foremost, we don't like to speculate. So we wanted to really grasp the current state of the company when it comes to performance and perception. And as we really like the Sustainable Brand Index, and it's given us a lot of insights, we thought this might actually be the thing for us to know our current state.
Do you have any learnings from this process? Hopefully you have. Something that you learned along the way from the analysis?
Well, we've learned a lot of things. We've been using this, the material, the analysis broadly in the organization, both myself and the sustainability manager and also the management team. So it was actually the foundation for starting the work with our new sustainability strategy. So it's given us good insights, things that we thought we knew, but now we have them validated, and also a lot of new insights that we did not know for a fact. So it's been very good for us, helpful.
Great. And maybe you have some kind of an insight or something you learned along the way that you could share with us?
Yeah, it was, I mean, we talk a lot about EV or the electrification of vehicles, and we know we're doing good. We're moving in a fast pace, but to see that our performance and the perception from consumers that we are in the pole position, that was great to see. I mean, that was a good receipt on what we're doing is actually gaining knowledge. And also, we found out that we need to actually pick up our pace in certain areas, that we're not transparent enough because people don't know what we're doing. So that was also good learning.
Time to wrap this up, and what better way to do it than with a summary? So, for the Dutch market 2024, some key insights that I want to think about and to discuss there. First of all, we talked about this in the very beginning, sustainability is resilient. Yes, it is. We do see that sustainability is a key discussion topic and a key topic for consumers, and that has not changed despite a worrying world and a worrying market in so many ways. So yes, it's the new normal for consumers. It's there and it's there to stay. Very positive for all of us. Local is a priority. We talked about the different topics that people want companies to work with. Yes, local aspects are definitely a priority. Local is sustainable in the eyes of consumers, but also very important to emphasize in the Netherlands that there is a lot of discussions around democracy, society, and politics, for example. So those more societal topics are really bubbling at the moment, and of course very important for brands to take that into account when they communicate and engage with consumers. We do see that consumer ambitions are high. People want to be more sustainable, but at the same time their self-portray, or rather their self-awareness, is quite low. They don't really understand that the way they live, the way they act is not that sustainable. I think we had a whopping 77% of the population thinking to some extent that they were actually living sustainably in one way or another. So that is a challenge to change that. We do see that the ranking is going down in terms of the overall ranking score and how people perceive brands. The reason for that is both awareness going down. People feel that they know less than they did before. They're also less positive. And the reasons for this is that people are confused. They're confused about what is sustainability. It's complex, of course. And also on top of that, we do see that there's been less communication, less media spend, and therefore less sustainability communication from companies. And that really affects, in a negative way, the ranking this year as well. And last but not least, very important to take into account the fact that as sustainability is complex, there is a need, there is a will, a want among consumers for simplicity, or at least clarity. So we do see that the brands that can deliver a clear value proposition, a clear sustainability advantage, those are the brands that are really gaining this year and winning this year. So complexity drives a need for simplicity, or at least clarity. So the more distinctive you can be, the more clear you can be, the better it is. Time flies when you're having fun. The official report from Sustainable Brand Index 2024 is out. You choose Sustainable Brand Index in the menu and your country, and you download the official report to see how your brand performed this year. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or want to talk to us, don't hesitate to reach out.